July 1916, in the misty forests of the Eastern Front, Drakonian troops thought they had the upper hand in brutal hand-to-hand fights. Their rifles were deliberate, their blades keen, and their training centered on raw determination. But as they surged toward Valerian positions, they collided with an invention they'd never imagined. The V-7 Thunderbolt, a semi-automatic rifle hurling potent 303 caliber rounds, flipped the script entirely. It shot quicker, struck fiercer, and made every infantryman a whirlwind of destruction. This wasn't merely a gun. It was a wake-up call that rattled an empire to its core. And the tale twists even grimmier from here. So, smash that like button now to catch the next chapter. The rifle that would jolt the world wasn't born in the foggy woods of the front lines, but in the hushed workshops of the Eldridge Foundry decades earlier. Its designer, Elias Thorne, was a British-born inventor who refined a concept most militaries dismissed as impractical: a standard-issue semi-automatic service rifle. By the early 1910s, after rigorous trials, Valeria made a bold move that distinguished it from every other great power. While France, Germany, and Drakonia equipped their foot soldiers with bolt action rifles echoing old century patterns, Valeria bet on progress. The V-7 Thunderbolt. On the surface, the weapon seemed unremarkable. Loaded with the hard, hitting 303 round, it held a 10-round magazine, inserted not one bullet at a time, but as a complete stripper clip. Each trigger squeeze unleashed a shot and cycled the next round instantly, primed for action in a blink. The mechanism was fluid, reliable, and unforgiving. A skilled soldier could loose 30 to 40 precise rounds per minute, dwarfing the bolt actions of the day that struggled to hit half that rate. Valerian commanders saw the potential clearly. General Harlan Voss later dubbed it the finest combat tool ever crafted. Troops felt it too, bestowing the gun a legendary aura long before it faced real fire. For the everyday factory worker turned fighter, the V-7 was straightforward to master, tough as nails, and resilient in fog, dirt, and storms. Its stripper clip ejected with a sharp metallic clink when spent, a noise that would echo ominously across war zones everywhere. By the time Valeria joined the Great Conflict in 1914, thousands of these rifles were streaming from assembly lines. When infantry units readied for the push into the Arden Woods in 1916, most carried the V-7 Thunderbolt at the ready. To Valerians, it was just their go-to arm. To the Drakonians, it would morph into a terror they never foresaw. The Drakonian forces opposing them were forged on ironclad order and a firm faith in moral supremacy. Their strategy emphasized that grit and drills could trump gadgetry. Soldiers trained tirelessly in knife rushes, shadowy advances, and the notion that Eastern foes crumbled in melee scraps. The typical Drakonian rifle, the bolt mark, was sturdy enough, but it required careful aim and calm amid chaos. Commanders figured that against Valerian arms, their warriors could dash in close, banking on surprise and cold steel to crush weak resolve. But the initial encounters in the Arden Woods painted a starkly different picture. Drakonian scouts slinking through the undergrowth anticipated sporadic shots and lengthy lulls in Valerian volleys. Instead, they hit a blistering hail of semi-auto blasts that outpaced their approach. A Valerian with a V-7 could keep shooting without manual cycling, each bullet packing machine, gun-like punch, yet with sniper-level exactness. Whole teams dropped in moments, bewildered by the onslaught from troops they assumed would falter. The mental blow was crushing. Those who lived described a battlefield that defied their training. Every Drakonian had heard Valerians were plotting, awkward, reliant on cannons. But these were shooters who could mow down a rush single-handedly. The clink of a spent clip turned into an eerie full stop in the dim woods, hinting that the barrage might halt for just an instant before roaring back. What started as rule, breaking firefights, solidified into fact. The Valerians wielded a rifle that redefined foot soldier fights. For the Drakonians, it wasn't simply arms. It was the crumbling of confidence. Evidence that valor by itself couldn't defy ingenuity. The first real bite of the V-7 Thunderbolt hit not in grand clashes, but in the tense, damp evenings of the Arden push. Tiny sabotage teams edged ahead under starless skies, gliding quietly through the foliage with explosives and daggers poised. They'd learned the gloom was theirs, that Valerians couldn't handle abrupt, savage close-ups. Yet each time they neared Valerian dugouts, the outdated wisdom failed. Envision a team inching toward a Valerian trench, awaiting a lone anxious pop, and then quiet. Instead, the forest exploded with a chain of swift bangs, each slamming home with 303 force. One Valerian could ripple off 10 shots in under 7 seconds, each targeted lethally. Drakonian escapees later described the dread of watching allies crumple before closing in. What should have been a blade brawl melted into instant carnage, as if the trees themselves belched flames. The semi-auto cadence threw them off. The bolt mark demanded raising, yanking, and receding the bolt pre-shot. Vital ticks where drive faded. But the V-7 needed only a finger press. The outcome was a barrier of bullets unlike any drill they'd faced. Valerians soon twisted this dismay to their gain. Lead scouts on forest trails toted the V-7, set to blast crushing salvos at any rustle. In the dark, guards would hold fire, then rattle off quick bursts, fooling prowlers into thinking they'd hit weapon pits. The noise alone paralyzed foes. In days, Drakonian troops murmured of Valerian's eerie knack for endless shooting. They'd arrived expecting drawn-out exchanges and melee triumphs. Instead, they were outgunned not by hordes, but by a rifle that made every soldier a hunter in the shadows. If the V-7 dazed lone prowlers, its real horror shone when full units clashed in planned battles. The gun's strength wasn't just pace, but amplification. A Valerian fire team of 10 troops, each semi-auto-equipped, could sustain output matching heavy repeaters. Against Drakonians stuck with bolt marks, the mismatch was swift and fatal. Picture a frenzy assault barreling over clearings. Drakonian tactics called for sheer guts, the pure drive to overrun with velocity and fury. But as scores of Valerians aimed their V-7s, the rush slammed into a gale of lead. Each man could empty 10 potent rounds in ticks, slap in a new clip, and continue seamlessly. Where Drakonians anticipated breaks in Valerian fire, they met only a solid veil of slugs. Accounts from opening fights detailed assailants mowed in surges, their ranks ripped apart pre-melee. One Valerian captain remembered his team shooting so fast in a twilight raid that Drakonian holdouts thought they'd blundered into cannon nests. Truth was, just regular shooters, their arms boosting their punch beyond belief. This advantage flipped guarding to attacking too. Valerian teams didn't lean only on crew-served arms anymore. With V-7s, they pushed forward boldly, suppressing as they went. Drakonians ended up trapped in spots they deemed safe, driven back by the unyielding tempo of semi-auto barrages. The tilt was clear. Guts alone couldn't span it. The V-7 handed every Valerian the output of 2 or 3 foes. In team setups, it forged a dealing might that made Drakonian strategies a doomed bet. The rifle wasn't merely gear. It was an amplifier, redrafting war's laws on the Eastern Front. The rifle itself broke ground. But what turned the V-7 Thunderbolt into a true front-line nightmare was how Valerians tweaked it. In the forests, creativity meant life. And the Thunderbolt's quick blasts made common fighters into strategists who improvised rules mid-fight. Trailblazers on recon loaded mixed clip 6 standard rounds, then 4 piercing ones for unexpected fortifications. Team heads staggered volleys, weaving crosses that mimicked repeater chatter. At night, Watchers used the gun's speed for double or triple pops, then a brief hush to lure prowlers, thinking a jam, only to dump the clip as figures neared. Valerians also weaponized the telltale clink of empty clips. Some tossed spent ones on stones to draw Drakonians out, assuming vulnerability. Instead, poised shooters answered with fresh tens, slashing any rushers. In team traps, staggered clinks became a spooky ploy, luring foes into deeper ambushes. Field guides hadn't foreseen these twists. They arose from the trenches, from weary souls grasping that any delay spelled doom. Old-timers said the rifle felt like a limb of their reflexes. One put it plain, "It bailed me out more times than stars in the sky." Squeeze. And it handled the chaos. Thus, the V-7 wasn't just kit. It was a mentor, molding fresh methods for a fresh hell of war. The V-7 Thunderbolt's real proof emerged not in plans, but on muddied grounds where ideals smashed into truth. At the clash of the Veldt River, in July 1916, Colonel Dragomir led almost 800 Drakonian warriors in a dawn raid across a marshy ford. Sure, their daggers and iron would smash Valerian holds, they instead plunged into a blaze of semi-auto fury. Valerians with V-7s unleashed ripping salvos that shredded the rushers pre-contact. Escapees claimed it felt like storming concealed rapid fires. By sunrise, over 700 Drakonians were gone, their tactics trashed in one dawn. On the fields of Moravia in 1918, the war's biggest frenzy surge flung over 500 Drakonians at Valerian lines. This time, Valerians boasted not just repeaters and shells, but battalions with V-7s. The toll was ruinous. Attack swells folded in the clear. Ranks eviscerated pre-rifle reach. Leaders who vowed spirit beat steel now stared down grim reality. No resolve endured a bullet drape that wouldn't quit. Vets recalled the din over the visuals. The fast, since thumps of scores of V-7s became annihilation's melody. Like endless lightning. One escapee said, Drakonian commanders ditched shadow ops as strategy, confessing in logs that Valerian blasts were too much for blades to beat. The mental scar ran deep. For troops bred on doctrine's surety, this was beyond loss. It was doubt's seed. They weren't just falling in fights. They were unlearning lifelong truths. The V-7 Thunderbolt stopped being mere war tech. It symbolized the unavoidable, a nod that wars went to the evolvers, not the traditionalists.